Okay, thanks, Rai, for setting the cadence up. So, here's what is going to happen. I am going to be asking some pointed questions to you, Priyanshu. And of course, I've done some homework, some research. Um, we have structured this conversation into a few segments. We'll talk about your career journey, how it started, um, especially on in the lines of Crayon. Talk about the leadership skills, the roles that you've played, and the people that you've worked with, and uncover a bit of fun and personal side, and finally look at what's next. And of course, in the end, I'm going to wrap it around with a rapid fire round, and there's no escaping. Are we
Oh,
ready?
I mean, yeah, sure. I'm not a big fan of talking about myself and all of that. I'd rather talk about work, but it's okay. Shoot. I will do my best.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for agreeing to do this. I know it was last minute and I'd put you on spot, but I couldn't find a better person to kick this off with. So, and I think this is also like for us to set the stage for what we hope will be the first of many personal journey sessions where we celebrate the people who've shaped Crayon and continue to define its story. Thank you again, Priyanshu. So I'll start off. If I'm just looking away, I'm looking at my notes. Sorry about that. But okay, let's start off with your journey. You had seen quite a bit of Crayon. So you started as an analyst, you went into product management, you did customer success, GTM. How was the journey? And what's your biggest
Um,
learning?
See, for me, I never really had any specific thoughts or dreams about career and stuff like that. Okay. For me, it was just about understanding how things work and slowly through experience and through exposure, figuring out where I find myself and where I can fit myself well, right? Um, and so, of course, having started in a consulting firm, I got some level of exposure into industries, and then working at IBM, got exposure into how large organizations work. But in both of these organizations, it was very much a fixed role. But at Crayon, I think the opportunity was there, right, to explore other parts of business as well, other parts of what it takes to make technology work and all of that, which it just coincidentally fit in very well with my own personality and persona and what I was looking for. So from that perspective, I was very happy with every challenge, every opportunity, every shift which has been given to me. In some cases, proactively asked. In some cases, it was assigned, but took it up as a challenge. It's just been very interesting. It's not like you have dull days because every day you're trying to figure something new out. You're facing a new challenge in different roles with different clients, different business lines. So from that perspective, it keeps me fresh. So that's my take on the whole thing.
And at what point, or was there even a point where you realized customer success is where I see myself?
No, no. One day I got a call from Suresh and Lakshmi, and they said we are doing this move and deal with it. And I said, okay. As I have dealt with other things, I'll deal with this as well. I think, to be very honest, across all other roles that I've kind of played in Crayon, I think customer success has actually been the toughest one, primarily because it kind of coincided with this nice time and space where I was really enjoying product work and getting to grips with it, but at the same times also realizing that not everybody is a nice person and your best friend. So some amount of people disappointment was happening, and then you're like, oh, now you have to be customer success, which is largely a people-based role. So it took me a little bit of time to kind of get over all of that and just kind of come to terms with it. I think still trying to find my footing because there's multiple different variables that go into customer success. You get pulled into many different directions, but at the same time, it still falls into that bucket of saying, every day is a new challenge. Every day am I learning something new. So from that perspective, it's just been something I've been happy to do.
Interesting. And you've been with Crayon for 11, 12 years now, right? What what is something that you've seen change or has anything changed at all?
No, definitely, there's been a lot that's changed. I think almost every year there's a structure change, which I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but sometimes it confuses me. But I do understand the need for all of these changes, right? I think there have been different phases that we've gone through. First couple of years, or the first phase, if I can call it that, was very experimental, very much about finding a good set of people who are interested in solving some here to undeclared problem, but had that problem solving kind of a mindset. And then the second phase went into saying, okay, we found a certain niche that works for us. How do we now create a foothold in that particular niche? The third phase went into saying, okay, now the whole world has changed with all of this COVID and all of that. How do we as an organization kind of come to terms with it? Faced multiple setbacks. How do you then recover from those setbacks as well? So I think at all phases, similar to school where it's kindergarten and then the primary school, secondary school, and then board exams and all of that. I think we've kind of been through all of these various phases. And again, for me, it's simple, right? Am I learning new things? Am I having an interesting thing that I'm doing? And is there an interesting problem and a vision that we're trying to solve? And I think throughout the course of Crayon, I think that's been one thing that's always stuck with me very, very strongly, which is that we're working on fairly interesting problems now with the whole generative AI direction that we've been on for the last year or so. The nature of the problem statements has become even more interesting, right? Not just from what you're solving and delivering standpoint, but how you're solving and delivering that as well. I keep telling most of my friends that I can't think of too many organizations who are actually doing generative AI in production right
Mm.
now. There are organizations who are trying it out, but I think they all are, for lack of a better word, riding the wave, as opposed to people who've been there for a long time, know exactly how value is to be delivered to a client, and now using technology to accelerate that value realization, right? So I think from that perspective, we are much better placed than anyone else to make sure that our Gen AI implementations are successful. Whereas you will see more and more reports coming out now about generative AI experiments and initiatives failing or not providing the kind of value or results that they were expecting. But I think from our perspective, touch wood, the success rate that we will have, and we have enough evidence right now between Gradient, between Breddington, between some of the work we're doing for Ardiv, etc., to know that we're in a good place.
Nice. Okay. So I've always known you as one of the most approachable and easy to talk to leaders at Crayon. And I've
Oh,
also heard a lot of, clients specifically ask you to be in their conversations. And how did that come to be? Is it something that, you know, comes to you naturally or something that you consciously worked on? Is there any advice for young crayons?
I think, look, I don't like to use the term, but I don't think I'm a people person, but somehow, whether it's childhood and environment I grew up in and all of that, I do find it easy to get along with people. And I think the simple realization is that at the end of the day, everyone is a human being. Whether it's a client, whether it's a sales prospect, whether it's a vendor, whether it's a colleague, right? Everyone has their own struggles, everyone has their own problems. So, as far as possible, I try to keep my engagement at a human level rather than at a transactional level, which is also slightly difficult in customer success because a lot of the times your clients only are looking for a transactional level engagement, but you have to force that human level engagement, even if you find resistance from the other side. And once you break through that barrier, that's when you see people start to open up and be a little more relaxed in the conversation. And you have to create that space for them to feel relaxed. Because if somebody is not going to feel relaxed while talking to you, they're not going to be fully transparent or open with you in terms of what is really troubling them. And unless you can actually figure out what really is troubling somebody, it's very difficult to find the right solution, right? I think from my perspective, half, maybe 75% of your problem is in identifying the right problem to solve. It helps you focus, narrow down your efforts. It helps you not waste time on things which won't provide value. And I've also done some personality tests to just figure out what my brain is like. And apparently, I'm a problem solver. So for me, wherever there's a problem, it's good and bad, huh? Because if I'm not able to solve the problem, I get little jittery and nervous and all of that. If I'm not able to help somebody out, it makes me really frustrated to some extent. But I think finding that balance to say, okay, you know what, at the end of the day, it's all people, and we have to live with people. Let's make the best of that interaction that you get. And of course, every day you have something to gain from the interaction. A different perspective is I think the most important thing. I think my favorite line, which to me really helped unlock a lot of my way of looking at things, is there's a person called Alan Watts who had said that if you are your feet, you are the universe. And that basically means if you're able to empathize with your feet, and none of us really spend time thinking about our feet, but if
Right.
you are able to look at life from the perspective of your feet, and I would urge you all to try it out. It is an interesting experiment
Mm,
because your foot doesn't see much. Your foot is usually locked inside a sock and a shoe. So how do you even visualize what life seems like from the perspective of your foot? And your foot is ultimately what is connecting you to the world by grounding you on reality and the world, right? Unless you sit on your ass all the time. But if you are able to visualize that, and if you're able to empathize with your foot, then I think it becomes easy for you to empathize with a fellow human being. So that's some exercise that I had done a while back, which I think really helped me unlock empathy as a trait.
so deep, but great. But you also gave a signal that you're a problem solver, so people out here, you know where to go.
Hey, hey,
Fun
come
apart.
with good
So
problems. Hey, nice one.
okay, so I think I'd like to ask you about the current role, into the customer success. What is your definition of great customer success?
It's in the
I'm
name of
sure,
the role, right?
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying because you also have good amount of, product background. I think you'll
Right.
have multiple, you know, versions of this definition, but what is yours that we can say is going to be, great customer success for Crayon?
Right. I think it's in the name. Like I said, it's customer success. That's the role. You got to make sure your customer is successful. Okay, that's the simple mantra that guides all decision making. Of course, there are various levels of interpretation of customer as well as success, and you need to work on finding what that is. What I mean by that is, who exactly is your customer? Is it ABC Bank? Is it the person who signs your check? Is it the person within the team who is your day-to-day Spock? Is it all the people around that Spock who need to get involved? What is the definition of success for each of them? Right? Everybody has a slightly different definition of success, and ultimately you need to find a way to balance what they consider as success, what is possible within what you have signed up for, within what your skill set is as a company, as a delivery setup, as a product, or whatever it is that you're giving them. But make sure that ultimately you are finding that balance to then make them successful as well, right? Because otherwise they're not going to renew, otherwise they won't pay you, otherwise all sorts of headaches starts. So it's always best to maybe focus on just figuring out what is a person's definition of success, either at a personal level and or at an organizational level, and then figure out how what you have signed up for can help them be successful in whatever it is that they're doing, right? And of course, for each account it varies, right? And I think that's something that we I feel we have lost a little bit over the last few years, which is, how do I make sure that whatever I'm delivering is actually delivering the value that we're talking about, right? It is to a large extent, again, depending upon what contract you sign. It could be just the delivery of a certain feature or a capability. In some cases, it's actually recognizing, realizing valuable insights that the client can act upon. In some cases, it's actually delivering hard numbers as far as revenue for the client is concerned. And it's variable. It's not to say that all of this needs to happen for every client, right? You have to conserve your energy and pick and choose how exactly to prove success. But if you're able to very closely understand what is it that we've signed up for, who is involved in making sure that our delivery goes as per plan, and making sure that whatever we're doing, sorry, is helping them succeed, whatever that definition of successful might be, I think then you've kind of succeeded as far as customer success is concerned. I think my struggle right now is in some cases the clients are very difficult. And so, how do you put your own expectations aside in terms of how easy life should be? And I'm using easy within quotes, to how difficult it is to get somebody to play ball with you. That's possibly something that I'm struggling with a little bit right now. But ultimately, I think we're all just trying to find our own way in life and get on with it. Nobody's really that unbreakable as far as being a wall or being difficult is concerned. So you try and you figure out what works.
Interesting. Since we were talking about success, how would you measure success for your team? Not just numbers, anything beyond numbers. What's success for you and your team?
See, right now it is numbers. I'm sorry, everyone, all humanness aside. Right now, it's very much about the numbers, because that is what we need right now, right? Whether it's numbers in terms of revenues, whether it's numbers in terms of time to close contracts, whether it's numbers in terms of successful delivery, measured by quality of the delivery in terms of open bugs at the time of release, deviation from plan to actuals, to then tracking the results of what you've given the client in terms of benefits and value that they've generated. Right now, I feel like if we all focus on the numbers, then it gives us space to kind of think about other things a little bit as well, right? So, in whatever role anyone is playing, I think the best way is to maybe just narrow down what your definition of value from your perspective is, from your client's perspective is, your function's perspective is, and then go ahead and deliver that. The other piece, though, which I think we can also work on besides the numbers, is just um, I don't know whether it's ways of working or whether it's structure, but it's in my opinion, it's just finding a way in which we can scale without needing to hire people, right? That I think is a transition we're all working through right now, and it is difficult, right? Because you will have a certain situation, and we recently, just a few days back, with KBZ, we realized we didn't have enough people working on it. So how do I pull people out and get them to work on it? We managed to do that. We managed to have a good meeting with the client just before this. But is that the nature in which of work for us? Is that how we want to keep working, where only when there's a firefight we want to keep pulling people here and there? Not necessarily, but at the same time, how do you make the space for people to be able to relax from the day-to-day deliverables, to then think about holistically how do we want to work on that? Creating the space, I think, is something which I'm thinking about closely right now in terms of how do we give people the space to even think about these things. Because currently, I think we're all very focused on the work that we have to do, which is the nature of business for us right now. But how do we create that space for us to start thinking, okay, how does the customer vertical work with the data vertical? How does the sales accelerator plug into these two verticals? Those are things we need to actually start creating the space for, I feel.
Okay. Now, my next question would be cliched, I'd put it in quotes. How do you handle conflict? Because, see, you work very closely with product engineering and you kind of handle all kinds of clients, right? The nice ones, the tough ones, and there's a lot of priorities that you juggle between. How do you find the balance between what a client wants and what the internal teams can deliver, especially when those two don't always align?
See, my first thing is to be like an ostrich, huh? Just put my head in the sand and hope that the problem blows over and that it is just a temporary thing and the stars will align. But that doesn't always happen, right? So for me, again, it goes back to what the definition of value is. Not this isn't related to customer success or product management or data science or anything like that. I think the idea always is to say, okay, what is the in the event of a conflict, and I'm not saying this applies all the time, in the event of a conflict, what is the minimum acceptance criteria to move on from the conflict? Okay. And that comes down to, you know, being able to talk to people at a human level, getting them comfortable to open up and express what they're really accepting is. Also, to be on top of all aspects of what you're dealing with respect to the issue, to then be able to use common sense at the end of the day to negotiate, to say, okay, I know you want this. If you want this, I'll have to add five more people, which will increase the cost. Are you willing to go and table a new budget requirement with your bosses? And mostly people will say no. In which case you say, okay, fine. If that's not possible, then can I take a little longer to deliver this for you? They say, no, that's also not possible. Then, okay, boss, then have to, bring down the expectations in terms of what you want me to deliver, right? And ultimately, then you also put one, let's say, overarching lens, which is what is at risk with respect to this particular conflict, right? Is it that the entire account and all of the revenues attached to that become at risk? Is it that the relationship becomes at risk, the trust gets broken, or the belief that you will deliver gets broken? Or is it that the individual is at risk, whether it's internally at Crayon, do they feel underappreciated? Is this something which will make them want to walk away or not give their 100% at work? So you have to put that overall lens to it as well, and then see where the balance lies in being able to figure out what the way out of a conflict is. But I think, the in an ideal world, we would all think about our feet, and we would all think about, empathy, and then there would not really be much conflict. So I personally start with empathy, understand what the person's really struggling with. Sure, this is something that went wrong, but what are the two or three layers beneath that are troubling the individual, and then start trying to work each of them out.
And how would you balance between the client versus our people?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm sure people are not going to like it. But see, it's that classic. If a tree falls in the woods, did it really, and nobody was around to hear it, did it really fall or not? Right?
Mhm.
When I was on the product side, I used to tell people, if you build a product and you don't have a single user, is there really a product or not?
Right.
Now, as a company, if you are providing a service and somebody is willing to pay you for that service, if there is nobody who's going to be paying you for that service, then are you really a company? Right? We can't all be like the Ubers of the world, just running on valuation and investor money and all of that. We need to run a reasonable business, right? So, unfortunately, it is the nature of B2B. It's the nature of anyone making any product where you end up having to prioritize your customer, right? Because ultimately they are the ones who are funding your venture or whatever it is. Even in a B2C context. And we think that in being in the B2B world right now, we have difficult clients and difficult regulations and all of that. In a B2C space, it's actually much worse. If I just open my own Swiggy chat history with the help center and look at how much I curse that bot that they have, and how much, I curse people when they don't show up on time with my food. That's what you deal with at B2C in thousands and 10,000s and 50,000s and millions range, right? Everybody will be cussing you out. So I
Right.
think it is the nature of providing a business. I think once AI reaches a point where AI sells to AI and you're building some AI which can sell to another AI, then these problems may not necessarily be there. But until such time, since we're all living in a society, you have to prioritize who is paying you, to make sure that they're happy.
Nice. Okay, so I'm going to segue into the next section, which is around, your leadership, maybe a bit into your personal and fun side. So I'll start
Hmm.
with
Mhm.
your team. You've managed and
Hmm.
mentored so many people, be it data scientists. I know from back then where there were data scientists also reporting to you when you were part of product management. And then, you had product people, then CS, GTM. Now, what's one quality you value in your team?
In my team,
Yes. What's
To me,
important
the
for you?
most important thing is communication and willingness to share. You know, you can't solve any problem without being open about what that problem is. If you have concerns, you should be encouraged and you should feel comfortable in being able to share those concerns. At the same time, please do temper what it is that you're concerned about. do your own internal monologue about whether this is legitimately something to be concerned about or not. But ultimately, do feel free to communicate, right? Now, yes, this is at a interpersonal level, but also in terms of doing the work itself, right? Whether you're stuck in a model, don't break your head about trying to solve the model yourself. If you're stuck on an engineering task in terms of how to build a pipeline, don't break your head alone. Always make sure that you have a support system around you. For me personally, the most important thing that I have found which helps me work with experts is just common sense. Not to say that people don't have common sense, but I always approach any problem because I know that I'm not the data scientist that maybe I was once in a like long ago. I've stopped data science coding very long back. I haven't ever written a data pipeline. I don't know what it takes. I've never written an API. I don't know what it takes. So I cannot come in and pretend to be an expert on those fields and therefore give you a response that will solve your problem from that perspective. But what I can do is follow a logical structure of how input output works, then how the next output gets consumed, and help you think through that. I can ask questions which will help people think through. And that's why, communication to me is the most important thing in a team, right? If the team is open to communicating, we don't have any hang-ups about, oh, this guy's a data
Right.
scientist, he won't know, that guy's a data engineer, he won't know. Is just understanding that people have different perspectives, and quite often those perspectives are what allow you to pull back from the problems that you're facing and then solve it as well. So to me, as far as a team is concerned and organization is concerned, I think the ability to have those open channels to communicate is the most important.
What's your view on feedback, giving, receiving?
I
What's
think
your
it's
view?
yeah, it's needed, dude. That's part of the whole communication flow, right? Communication can
Yeah.
never be one-sided. It always has to be two-sided. Communication doesn't necessarily always have to be pleasant and congratulatory in nature. Sometimes it's about being, straight, if I can say that. The only thing that I would urge everyone is that, while communicating, while providing feedback, to take a minute to just breathe and think through how you want to deliver the feedback, because if you deliver the feedback in a negative way, the chances that you will not find that change in that individual that you're providing the feedback to become higher, right? I've said this before, never lead with why type of questions. Everybody gets very defensive when it comes to why questions. If there is something that you don't appreciate, feel free and have the confidence to deliver it in an articulate and simple manner, without getting too frustrated about it, without getting too hung up on the fact that it needs to lead to a certain change, and have that dialogue when it comes to feedback, and then be willing to accept both sides of it, right? You don't need to always say that I need to get my way, but try to understand why the way in which a certain person has either conducted, let's say, a quarter of work or has performed during that quarter of work has been the way that it has, and then understand how to make sure that next quarter is better, next quarter, next month, tomorrow, all of that. So, yeah, again, it goes back to communication and just perfectly very important to have that line of feedback back and forth.
What do you think your team will describe your leadership style like in a
Painful,
line?
painful talk so much. My God, so painful. Don't want to talk to him at all. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I think if they think of me as helpful, that's I'll sleep happy tonight.
Okay. And is there a memory of crayon that makes you smile? Can you share that?
I don't know whether it's the PG-13 memories or non-PG-13 memories, but there's of course when you spend 12 years at a place, you obviously have so many of those memories that come up every day, right? To me, I guess my fondest one is from various factors. My fondest one has to be the we did that Maya enterprise and consumer applications release, I think 2018, 2019, somewhere around then. That period was possibly the one that I reflect on quite most fondly, simply because it was very exciting in terms of the team itself that was there, very young team, all working together. We all worked very closely together on all of those releases. I think the task and the challenge which was set to us was also a fairly large one. But to whatever extent I felt that we were all able to rise to that challenge. And then the few like the night leading up to that release was possibly something that even though I was sleepy as hell through it, we all stayed up for most of the night to do the last pieces of work. It was very exciting. It was very, very exciting. All of us were quite exhausted because we'd been pushing ourselves really hard. But that one particular night, somehow, even though we had had multiple sleepless nights before, that one night, it didn't feel like any of us wanted to sleep. It was just that, yeah, we got to do this. We got to make sure this release happens. And we did it at the end of the day. We did it. And then that from multiple standpoints, from being able to take one small team, a very fairly young team, and build something like that out, that was something big. From showing that this structure which had been set up within the organization could actually operate against that structure, that was, I think, a big win as well. Then to finally say that, you know what, we've got these products that we're now rolling out and we'll now have a continuous strain of products coming out after this was also part of something that for a long time we ourselves weren't able to believe whether we can do it, but to actually see it being done. And it's not about whether it was ultimately successful, not successful. It's not about that. It just showed that it can be done. And that was something that we all within the organization needed at that point. And I think between the various teams which are operating, not just the enterprise team as it was called at that time, there were multiple other teams also who were working on similar mandates. The fact that everybody could pull it all together was, I think, fantastic. I mean, that to me is one core memory which I guess I will look back on when I'm old and senile as well. But
Mhm.
besides that, I think movies that we've all gone for, the lunches in office, the nasty biryani lunches which you used to have in the second floor, fifth floor, those. Then, of course, launching the new office, setting up ways inside that new office, whether it was discussing who gets the best seat or why we should even have a bell and have a ceremony for a bell. It was all absurd things, but then they just were very exciting for us to set up because it just those are just things that we did for ourselves, right? Which helps then finally create that um, bonding or way of working within the company. And of course, we've had some notorious uh, off-site parties and drinks and all of that, which were also their own fun. Yeah.
If you weren't in Crayon, what would you be doing right now?
If I wasn't in Crayon,
Mm.
I don't know, man. I feel like I would. I'll probably be trying something physical out in the sense of something physical, tangible, something of that nature I'd be trying out because I think I don't know about all of you, but I personally feel like I'm starting to lose a little bit of touch with the physical world. Going for a walk and things like that has been replaced with just scrolling and getting some micro doses of entertainment, right? So I think I would like to do something like that. I've always been interested in the idea of farming and growing things, but I've been very bad at it. Minus one small chili plant which I grew when I was like 5 years old, just out of curiosity. Nothing has ever survived. Recently, I started spending a little bit of time with plants in my house, just kind of taking care of them, gardening and things like that. So I would like to try something along those lines out. Otherwise, maybe just, go sit in an ashram and meditate and hope that, you can send out good vibes into the world and not worry about money and sustenance and retirement and things like that and just like exist. That would be nice.
Wow. Okay. Nice. So if you were to pick a movie title to describe your career, what would it be and why?
Oh man, movie title. You
Yeah. Just
all
describe
or
your
none.
career.
I don't know, man.
Go
That's a
for it.
different. See, what it would be nice if we could either be Inglorious Bastards That's a nice title for your career, I guess, or Catch Me If You Can. Hopefully, if
Wow.
we're able to really accelerate things, all of us will look back on career and say nobody could catch us. So I think that would be a nice title to have. But Alavandan, until then, Alavandan.
Nice. Didn't expect that though. But okay, pulling back again into, our future at Crayon, and I just want to try and wrap this up with some inspiration. What's next for you and your team for the next 6 months?
I think for the next 6 months, we'll try and find as many interesting problem statements as we can to start solving using AI. I think that's to a large part it's been happening. I think if you look at the catalog of agents that people have come up with, it's huge, cutting into things that we know as well as things that are unknown at this point in time in terms of our exposure to different verticals and industries. So I think for the next 6 months, we'll try and get as much more exposure as possible, try and close a few of those out so that irrespective of whether it's banking, whether it's water management, whether it's whatever else it is, we start developing that expertise in deploying, Gen AI in production, right? I think
Mhm.
the main goal for us should be in the next 6 months to get as many of these use cases into production as possible. Sure, some of them will be subpar, some of them will be outstanding. The subpar ones we'll have a roadmap to improve upon. But I think the main thing is to start getting them into production because, like I said, there are able to or capable of doing it, but don't have the chops as we do. So I think we are very well placed to do that.
Hmm.
Once you've done that, then you are at a point, hopefully in 6 months, where let's say we hit about 800K in monthly revenues and our cost remains somewhere around the same. You have enough breathing space then to kind of really take a call on across all of these things that we've seen, where what are the two or three things which really can end up becoming either vertical agnostic or so vertical specific that they scale really significantly. So I think the next 6 months really will lay the foundation for that scaling, which will happen in 2026. I'm quite confident we'll get there. There's enough traction we have as well as enough goodwill that we have to
Right.
be able to actually get to that point.
Okay. Is there a message you'd like to give people early in their Crayon careers, especially those who want to grow across functions like you have?
I would say just don't pigeonhole yourself into saying somebody somewhere hired me when I started my career as a data analyst and therefore this is all I will be for the rest of my life. I don't think that's necessary. I think I personally know quite a few people who've made drastic career changes in their 40s, in their 50s. There are multiple examples of that. So don't
Right.
ever feel like you're being pigeonholed into something. At the same time, though, it's best if you establish a level of expertise before you move into something else. So if you are, let's say, in data science and you want to move eventually into product management because for some reason that sounds glamorous to you, make sure that you are the best data scientist that you know, and then use that in your product management career, right? Because today, if you see people who are pure play product managers who started off day one product managers, they don't know enough about data science to be able to exactly put a requirement together on data science. But if you're a data scientist and you know your data science and you get into product management to manage data science products, then you're
Right.
actually building step by step on any of the expertise that you've built out rather than just starting fresh every single time, which can get exhausting over a period of time, right? I think that's how you balance the whole um, jack of all trades, master of none kind of a thing. It is to actually be a master, but be able to move around. So I would tell people be as curious as possible. Think of it like a data pipeline, right? You're doing some work. Be curious about who is feeding the inputs for your work. What does it take for them to feed the inputs to you? But be as curious about who consumes your work and then where does it end? Where does it go and end, right? Go all the way down the entire chain of delivery or definition of done or value and then see where it stops. So just be curious about it, and through that curiosity, you will find opportunities, is what I think.
Okay. quick time check. We're on time, but we started 5 minutes late. I really want to do this rapid fire with you, Priyanshu. So,
Oh, snap. Okay.
real rapid fire. Um,
Okay.
Coffee or
If I
tea to
say
start your
something
day?
nasty, please don't mind. Most of the time I'm well behaved, but my internal monologue is kind of dirty. So if I say some bad words, please don't mind.
All right. So, tea or coffee to start your day?
Coffee,
Okay, one
for
app you
sure.
can't live without. Outside work
Nine gag.
tools.
Nine gag.
If your calendar had a soundtrack, what song do you think it would be playing?
Oh man, this is a rapid fire thing.
Yeah.
Uh, can't touch this. I don't know. There's this MC Hammer song. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It's called Can't Touch This.
Okay. What's one word your friends outside Crayon would describe you as?
Enthusiastic, I guess.
Yes. And what's your biggest work pet peeve?
Work pet peeve. Uh, Recently it's been not planning things, let's say even for the day or for the week, and not being given enough notice to actually prep for something before coming into it. I think that's my pet peeve, because otherwise then the conversation becomes very superficial. Sometimes it's okay, because sometimes you just need to hear somebody out or just brainstorm. But yeah, my biggest pet peeve right now is, you want me to contribute, just tell me what we're going to talk about, and then I'll think about it and then come in prepared.
Okay. So next one is my favorite. If you could swap jobs with anyone at Crayon for one day, who would it
I told
be
you
and
so,
why?
Vignesh. Yeah, Vignesh
Oh
only.
yeah, I
For
know
sure.
the
Vignesh. Yeah, yeah. I would happily swap jobs with Vignesh.
Okay.
Why? Because that's the most exciting thing happening right now, dude. He's able to explore so many different things, and it's also a massive challenge for him and the team. And I think they've done fantastically with it, which is that technology itself is evolving so rapidly, that they're kind of doing it. But at the same time, having said that, I think any role in Gradient right now would also be super, super exciting to play.
Okay, interesting. If you had a chance to do a TED talk tomorrow, what would it be about?
No, just finding peace, man. Finding peace. Yeah, yeah. For me, I think if you again, and I'm very, very serious about this, because if you look at it right now, and I just read some article a few days back, by some doctor who had put it out in the Economic Times for some weird reason. But they said that 50% of the heart attack cases that they're seeing right now are in people who are fairly young, and that's shocking. 50% is a huge number. Traditionally, heart attacks and all of that used to be linked to genetics, and old, once you get much older in life, that's when you had these problems. But now you see that 50% of the cases are for people who are just either in and around 40 or even younger than 40. And a leading reason for that is just lifestyle, of course, sedentary lifestyle, sitting all the time, not eating well, blah blah blah. But it's also just stress. It's a lot of things that are revolving around stress. So if I were to do, I just talk about finding peace, man.
Which is your favorite or most recent podcast that you're listening to?
The
Is there any
only podcast
recommendation?
I actively listen to is Kill Tony. It's not really a podcast. I don't know if any of you have heard it. It's more of a rapid fire stand up comedy kind of a thing, where
Hmm,
each person is given 1 minute to talk, and then there's a panel of judges and all. That to me is my favorite pastime.
okay. Okay. Finally, what's one thing people would be surprised to learn from you or learn about you?
Surprised to learn about her.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Something none of us know because this is a fun segment. So,
'Cause I like to sketch. I'm horrible at it. But wait, I'm really bad at it. But this is
wow.
my attempt at drawing um, some. I don't know what it was, but recently I just enjoy looking at houses and seeing faces in those houses. It might sound stupid and weird, but this was some two people who I saw sitting in a window, and I just thought I'd make it into a little
Wow.
sketch. Very amateurish. But that's one. I'll show you one thing which I'm kind of proud of. Where is it? Hurry. Okay, I can't find it. I don't want to waste time. But basically, I tried to. Ah, haha. Here. These were
Oh, wow.
a couple of our clients. I don't know if people, I don't know, some people might be able to recognize who these guys are, but a couple of ex difficult clients that we had kind of just one day decided to sketch them while they were on a call. So yeah, I'm horrible at it. I have very little skill at it, but it's just something I enjoy.
Wow, nice. Well, thank you, Priyanshu. I think this was such a refreshing and inspiring conversation. I think what really stood out today was how your journey captures the spirit of Crayon, growing through change, wearing multiple hats, and, staying curious through all of it. I think this is something all of us should learn from you. It's a reminder that leadership isn't just about titles or roles. I'm sure you will also be one of those role models to many younger crayons. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for
great.
taking time, agreeing to do this last minute. Thank
Hey,
you
no, not at
again.
all. Thank you for thinking about me. I hope all of you had something to take away from this. And if you guys have any questions, anything you want to talk about in deeper, in greater length, I'm always happy to do that.
Thank you.